For the last few years, I've had this sense that everything I learned as a kid about how America's government works is completely wrong. But I had no idea how bad things actually were until I saw this one graph. Researchers at Princeton University looked at more than 20 years worth of data to answer a pretty simple question. Does the government represent the people? Now, this is what they found. This axis here represents public support for any given idea. On the left, at 0%, are ideas that not a single American wants. On the right, at 100%, are ideas that everyone supports. This axis represents the likelihood of Congress passing a law that reflects any of these ideas, from a 0 to a 100% chance. On this graph, an ideal republic would look like this. If 50% of the public supports an idea, there's a 50% chance of it becoming law. If 80% of us support something, there's an 80% chance. You get the idea. Now, most Americans would probably agree that, with a few exceptions, we should be as close to this ideal as possible. Unfortunately, the way America actually works doesn't even come close. Take an idea that nobody supports, literally nobody, and it has about a 30% chance of becoming federal law. Now, take an incredibly popular idea, the most popular idea this country has ever seen, and there's also about a 30% chance of it becoming law. This means that the number of American voters for or against any idea has no impact on the likelihood that Congress will make it law. Put another way, and I'm just going to quote the Princeton study directly here, the preferences of the average American appear to have only a minuscule, near zero, statistically non-significant impact upon public policy. So if you've ever felt like your opinion doesn't matter and that the government doesn't really care what you think, well, you're right. But there's a catch. This flat line only accounts for the bottom 90% of income earners in America. Economic elites, business interests, people who can afford lobbyists, they get their own line. Look at how much closer their line is to the ideal. When they want something, the government is much more likely to do it. And when they don't, they have the power to completely block it from happening, no matter how much the rest of the country supports it. They get what they want, and guess who ends up paying for it? We pay for it with the most expensive healthcare in the world. We pay for it with a tax code that's a complete mess. We pay for it with internet that's slower and more expensive, with wasteful spending, a floundering education system, a catastrophic drug war, and 1 in 5 American children born into poverty. Almost every major issue we face as a nation can be traced back to this graph. How does this happen? Well, just follow the money. Right now, it's perfectly legal to buy political influence in America. Here's how it works. Let's say a big bank wants a law that would force taxpayers to bail them out again if they repeat the exact same reckless behavior that crashed the global economy in 2008. Not exactly the most popular idea with the public, and Congress knows that. That should be the end of it. But that's where the money comes in. It's perfectly legal for our bank to hire a team of lobbyists whose entire job is to make sure that the government gives the bank what it wants. Then those lobbyists can track down members of Congress who regulate banks and help raise a ton of money for their re-election campaigns. It's perfectly legal for those lobbyists to offer those same politicians million-dollar jobs at their lobbying firm. Then, those lobbyists can literally write the language of this new bailout law themselves and hand it off to the politician they just buttered up with campaign money and lucrative job offers. And it's perfectly legal for those politicians to take the lobbyist-written language and sneak it through Congress at the last second. So now you've got a law that greatly benefits the banks, and the whole process can start over. This is how a bill becomes a law. A special interest hires some lobbyists, those lobbyists collect campaign contributions, offer jobs, and then write the laws that Congress then passes to help those same special interests. This happens every day on every single issue with politicians of both parties. In the last 5 years alone, the 200 most politically active companies in the United States spent $5.8 billion influencing your government. Those same companies got $4.4 trillion in taxpayer support. And that's trillion, with a T. And that's just the top 200 companies. Never mind every other special interest, every union, every trade association, and every billionaire. Every single one of them can use their money to buy political influence. You know, there's this idea out there that this only became a problem after the Supreme Court's Citizens United decision in 2010. But the data goes back almost 40 years, and the results are clear. Corruption is legal in America. And as long as it is, anyone who can spend money to buy political influence will. The solution here isn't rocket science. Make corruption illegal. We already know Congress won't do it. I mean, one look at this chart will tell you that. What we need is a plan that lets us go around Congress and do what the American people do best. Fix this mess ourselves. Well, good news. We have that plan and it's already working. Now that we've got the problem covered, let us show you how to be part of the solution.
We interrupt our program with a special bulletin.
All right, so could you tell us what you're doing out here today and what you're advocating for? I got it.
We're advocating for the transparency of police so that we can see what it is that they're doing, why they're doing it, why are these systems being put in place, and why are they pulling over people, mainly of marginalized races, marginalized people in general. There should not be any way that you can profile somebody in America. That's dead. That's one of the main things. Also, we want to see the police disarmed. We want to see them have less weapons, because when you give somebody a gun, they are more likely to use that gun at some point in their life. And whether they use it for protection or in many cases just because they want to use it, these are the situations that we're seeing on TV. Over 300 people have been killed in America just this year by police.
Right.
So put the numbers together.
Right, absolutely. Now, when you mentioned protection, right? Do you feel that the police are here to protect you?
Well, we pay them in taxes to protect and serve.
That's what they say, right?
Well, that's what they say. But what we see in society is that basically that they're terrorizing us just as a gang would or anything else. And they are the largest gang, so they have a lot of power. They have more resources than anyone else, and they use it against the people. And it's starting to become a war against the police and the people. And we would rather see this die out before it does become one. We don't want to see a second civil war here in America. We want to see peace. We want to see prosperity. We want to see economic conditions get better. We want to see new forms of innovation that will allow us to get off of oil so that we can start a nation that is proud of itself through and throughout, not a nation that is polarized between two opposites over minuscule ideas like abortion and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. Well, awesome. I like where you're heading in this direction of this. So, in areas like seeking transparency, how do you feel about abolishing this organization instead, and we provide our own form of security?
Well, that would be the optimum solution, because then if we had private security, we would have much more transparency. I mean, if you look at any private business, if they're not doing what you want them to do, then you can go to them and you can say, this is what we want you to do, because they're getting paid by us. Then they will start to change the way that they are acting.
Absolutely, yes. That's volunteer. That's consistent. If you want my business, right? Yeah. Otherwise, I go somewhere else.
Exactly.
Right? Otherwise, I'll compete and provide a better form of security that's not going to be abusive or harmful to you, the consumer.
Exactly.
Yes. Are you aware of the Supreme Court case, Winnebago versus Deshano County?
Might be.
So many Supreme Court rulings have said that the police have no obligation to protect your life, liberty, or property. Right?
Yeah.
So this is something like when I was studying criminal justice here at VCU that they didn't tell me, right? This is stuff they don't want to tell you because it kind of undermines the entire system in itself, right? So you mentioned earlier, like when you pay taxes, so you're being forced to pay for service in which they don't have to provide.
We as a people were being coerced into paying taxes
Absolutely.
that we don't want to pay, but we have to, because if you don't, well, then you go to jail.
Absolutely.
So we pay our taxes. The taxes rise every year. Why are they rising every year? We don't know, because a lot of it goes to secret organizations that we never see, and a lot of it goes to bringing more police into places, brings bigger weapons, and it's basically, if you look at Baltimore right now, it is a militarized zone. Why are tanks running through the streets of America? This is not a place for that. If you want to run tanks through anywhere, run it in a secret location where you're training the people to use the tanks, and only for the worst case scenario. We should not be running around the world being world police.
Right, it's here at home as we're very vividly seeing that we're losing our freedoms.
Yeah,
right.
Every day.
Every day. Not overseas. Here, now you're mentioning the tanks that the National Guard has rolled in now, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Habeas corpus suspended.
Uh-huh.
Many people are being arrested now, a lot more for victimless crimes, especially the mayor of Baltimore authorizing. It's really fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right, so that's pretty cool, I guess. And so we should be advocating for its abolition then, I would say, right? Because the police are not here to protect us. They're here to extort us. They're here to kidnap you for victimless crimes. No, it's a pleasure to see someone out here speaking the truth in that manner. I think we can put all our energy and focus and willpower towards seeking this abolition and creating something aside from that. It is going to be voluntary. It is going to be at least they'll be protecting private property.
Well, what about the roads?
What about the roads? Nice one. Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much for coming out here. I really applaud what you're doing.
Yep, thank you.
I blast, refuse to kiss ass quick fast. I'm ready to mask cause of my tormented past. Swallow the pain, follow the mental terrain. It takes a hell of a man nowadays to maintain garments bloodstained, face bruised and battered, eyes reflect agony of dreams that were shattered. It never mattered to the so-called general public about my nation's situation and how we rise above it, and they love it when we self-destruct and kill a home. And the greater responsibility, yes, it's still our own. We should know by now that the system is designed for our demise. If we arrive, we'll be left behind. The dollar signs rule. But what about the fool who falls victim to the material world?